Okay. So, Partner Resource Network, who we are. Partner Resource Network is the parent training and information centers for Texas. We are funded by the Department of Education, Office of the Special Education, to provide free resources and training for parents of children with disabilities and youth with disabilities and self-advocates. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities or special healthcare needs. We serve parents of children and youth with disabilities from the ages from 0 to 26, as well as youth of self-advocates ages from 14 to 26. Partner Resource Network was first founded in 1986, and now we have 4 projects serving parents and youth with disabilities. We had PAT, TEAM, PEN, and PACT, and we are the Parent Training Information Center for Texas. So like I told you guys, I'm part of the TEAM project. As you can see in the map, in the red area, the TEAM project covers the Region 13 area, that is Austin, where I am. And then we have San Antonio, that is Region 20, and then Region 1, that is all the region, the Rio Grande Valley area. But if you are not in the TEAM project area and you want to know who your coordinator is, please just send us an email and we will tell you who is the person that is very close to you and can help you. Our services are free and we offer parent workshop, youth workshops, webinars like this one, information and referrals, one-on-one technical assistance. We do a lot of support in the IEP meetings, ARD meetings. We do symposiums once a year, each coordinator. We offer also parent leadership training, youth leadership trainings. So for today, if you have any question, please don't hesitate and use the chat box. Type your questions in there or in the Q&A. I'm going to be monitoring that, and Allison is going to answer those questions that you may have. This webinar is going to be recorded. It's going to be shared in our Facebook pages later on. And also Alison is going to share, she also has a YouTube channel that she posts all the videos of the presentations. At the end of this session, you are going to receive a link. It's a survey, it's an evaluation. Please help us with that, fill that evaluation. With that, we can report to our grant how are we doing. Please provide us with honest feedback. And we do not provide CEUs, but we do certificate of attendance. If you need one, please type it in the chat box or send me an email and I can provide that for you. All right. So my contact information, again, that's my name, Veronica Alvarez. My phone number is in there. And notice that we have a new email since March. They change our handles very, not with our names now, very general. So my new email is region13prn@gmail.com. And please visit our website at www.prntexas.org. All right, so for today, we have with us Allison Schaberg. She's been working with us since last year. I think it was in October or November, Allison, that you've been so grateful to help us and be with us all this time. And she's going to be talking today about transitions, tips for launching your special needs teens into adulthood. Allison is a passionate advocate for the special needs community. Also, she's a parent of children with special needs, and she understands very well our world. She is a financial planner with over 25 years of experience working in the field, and she owns the company Consolidated Planning Group. So welcome, Allison. Again.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you for having me back again today. I'm excited to be here with you. One might conclude that I'm a little bit passionate about planning for special needs. And as Veronica mentioned, I am a parent. I am a mom. I have 4 kids, 2 stepchildren, 2 of my own, and the youngest 2 have special needs. So I eat, sleep, and breathe this, both professionally and personally. And it has become my passion to equip parents with tools and resources that they need to make important decisions as it relates to planning for special needs. So today, we're just going to be talking about some of the tips for launching your special needs child into adulthood. There's a lot of things. I think one of the reasons that I'm passionate about this so much is that I do this. This is what I do for a living. And what I would tell you is that it's difficult. Okay. This path as a parent, when you're trying to plan for your child, it's difficult because every day is difficult. We wear a lot of full-time hats of being married and having other children and maybe a full-time employee. And then just the needs alone of your special needs child are enough to be a full-time job. When you start adding into the mix all of these things that you're expected to know about how and when to do certain things and how not to make critical mistakes that could affect your child and their benefits and their well-being in the future, it starts being a little bit overwhelming. So as Veronica mentioned, we do have a YouTube channel. We have presentations on almost every topic that you can imagine as it relates to special needs planning. And we kind of hit on a lot of those things. So there may be other presentations that might be more appropriate for you, such as guardianship, special needs trust. There's all kinds of them, college for special needs, those types of things. So you guys can check out our YouTube channel and see what's out there. And so if you're joining us again, like you've been a part of some of our webinars in the past, thanks for coming back. And if this is your first time, we're really glad you're here. And we're here to help. We're glad to help you any way that we can along your journey. And we know that the journey is tough for sure. Okay. So as it relates to getting started and some of these transitioning tips, I think first and foremost, it is really, really important to start setting realistic expectations. I kind of joke at this one and say, okay, eye roll, who as parents don't know more, about our kids than anybody else. But I think really understanding the child's diagnosis and the challenges and strengths that they face as a result of their disability is really, really important, because we live in a world of comparison, and comparison starts very, very early. When you have a child, well, when did he sit up, and when did he walk, and when did he crawl, when did he do this, there's all of these things, and we're comparing our child to other children, to expectations that we're reading in books. But the thing is our kids are typically outside of the perfect 9 dots, if there is a such thing as the perfect 9 dots, right? And so I think it's important to understand that the path for your child might be a non-traditional path, and coming to terms and to grips with that as a parent is sometimes difficult. Like sometimes being realistic with ourselves of where we are. So, we may look at our child that is 18 years old and ideally in a perfect scenario, which we don't have, that 18-year-old should be able to graduate from high school or move on to college or move on to bigger and better things. But for a lot of our kids, they're simply just not there yet. So that non-traditional path and considering some of the other options that are out there are things that we have to wrap our mind around, and really not things that our peer group or other parents that we might talk to might not be dealing with. So it's kind of hard to put ourselves in that particular box. But just keep an open mind and really consider all the options out there. For some, I know that the disability impedes a driver's license, that child will maybe never get a driver's license. But for some, we might need to delay a driver's license. Maybe some of our kids have maturity issues. Maybe they're ADHD, high functioning autism. Maybe their maturity is 2 to 4 years behind their peers. And so they're not ready to take on that responsibility of a driver's license. One thing that I like to mention, because I did do this with my own children, is that there are therapeutic driver's license schools that are designed to teach a child with disabilities, or maybe even, like, for instance, an individual that has had a stroke, or they have had some impediment to driving occur, but they're designed to teach people with disabilities how to drive safely. So you may want to consider some of those and look into them. I definitely know of two. There's Miller Driving Rehab in the greater Houston area, and there's Strawmat Driving Rehab, but Tier Memorial Hermann. So if you're wondering on this driver's license stuff, can your child do this? Can they not? Tier Memorial Hermann also has a program. It's like in the office program where they really do a multi-point test on your loved one, which will identify if your child even has the reflexes and the kind of the processing speed and all of those things that they might need to think fast if they were behind the wheel. And that assessment in itself may be able to shed some light on if it's something that you should consider or not. Consider things like trade
Alison,
school.
Can you
Yes.
repeat the name? We have in the chat. Can you repeat the name of the driver's license? What is it? Of the driving schools?
Yes, we had good success with Miller Driving Rehab. I think they're out of the Woodlands in the greater Houston area. There's Strawmat Driving Rehab, and then Tier Memorial Hermann. They don't do the behind the wheel training, but they actually do testing and assessment that actually could be covered by your insurance to identify if your child has what it takes to drive. So we got those assessments done first before we went on to doing, the assessments and the practice with the specialized training. So all driver's ed instructors, most driver's ed instructors are not adept in training somebody with a disability on how to drive, and especially with kids with ADHD that are impulse control issues that could be an issue. So moving on, when we're considering all options, trade school, community college, transition programs. A lot of our schools have transition programs, and there's also transition programs outside of the public school that you might consider. We might consider a reduced college course load. Maybe, the average, course load is 12 hours as far as a full-time load, but maybe you consider one course. Maybe they can handle one course. Maybe you can try your hand on that. And we'll talk about this later, but there are a lot of school programs that are across the state of Texas, across the United States, but across the state of Texas some of them are certificate programs, but there are many of them that are designed to work with children with disabilities, with kids that are transitioning from the public school. You can think about things of living at home versus on campus, or kind of what those things might look like. But the main thing, I guess, that I'm just trying to get across here is, and as a parent, so I'm not like condemning anybody because I had to do this. What I'm saying to you is you have got to get out of your own way as it relates to planning for your child and understanding that the non-traditional path is okay, and it could be the best thing that ever happened to you and your child. Because like I said, the expectations are just set so high, and sometimes these expectations are, a recipe for failure. For failure, for us to feel as failure as a parent, and setting the child up to fail because of their differences that have set them behind a few years than their peers. So they look the part. A lot of times they look the part from an age perspective, but maybe they're just not there yet. So we want the individual to feel good about their path and celebrate the little wins along the way. And I think that is important. Okay. So we talk about finding a good fit, and I love this quote: when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows. We don't fix the flower. And that's the same thing with our kids. Sometimes there are struggles. We've seen a lot of struggles in the schools. Some of your children have disabilities and they're academically gifted and they have no issues in the schools, but others have many learning challenges and learning differences that cause problems along the way. So finding a good fit, and what we're thinking about here is post high school. So whether your child is graduating and getting out of high school at age 18, or they're staying in kind of a longer path, maybe getting out at age 21 or 22, what we really don't want to see, and what we see as a problem, and this was almost impossible during the pandemic, but it's where the child is coming home and doing nothing. They get out of the public school, they're done with school, and now we don't have a plan. We don't have a plan for a transition program. There's no extracurricular activities. Maybe the child's going to go to work. Maybe they're going to have a career path. Maybe they're going to learn a trade. And all of those things are perfect. Not every child is cut out for community college or a certificate program, but there could be any number of work settings that they would thrive in and do really, really well. Oops. Okay, so one thing to think about, so if you're in your high school journey, you're kind of coming down the pipe here, thinking about some different things. One of the things that I want you guys to think about is accommodations. This is something that is largely talked about. We talk about ARD meetings, we talk about accommodations in the public school. And what's important to know is that if your child is going to move on to a path of the community college or higher learning, those accommodations that you have in the public school don't just automatically transfer to the university or the community college. So some of the accommodations that you might want to think about is the SAT and the ACT exams. These are the accommodations. You can apply for accommodations for SAT and ACT. So if you're going to the university, then most universities are requiring either an SAT or an ACT. Some of those requirements have been relaxed a little bit over the last year and a half because of the pandemic. But if your child needs extra time, if they have like processing speed delays, working memory issues, some of those things, there are accommodations that you can get. You can get a small class size or a one-on-one testing environment. So if a child has distractibility issues, you can get extra time, sometimes even up to 100% more time, usually 50% more time. There's a lot of different accommodations, but you want to check the requirements early and be prepared. For the SAT and the ACT, each of them, the SAT is the College Board, and the College Board, if you type in accommodations for the SAT, it'll take you to a site where there's a form that you can download that will be need to be signed off on by a doctor, asking for the specific accommodations that you need. ACT has their own form, but you want to do this early. So if you've got the SAT scheduled for the fall, it usually happens in September or October, this is a good time to be requesting those accommodations now, because if you try to request accommodations a couple of days or even sometimes a couple of weeks before the test, you run the risk of those accommodations have not been approved prior to the testing. And so again, you could be sending your child into testing with both arms behind their back because they don't have the accommodations that they need. So determine what accommodations are necessary and why. And usually most of these institutions, and I can't stress this enough, that every higher learning education system, whether it's community college or university, they have their own rules. There's not a universal rule for the state schools in Texas of what they require, but most of them require updated testing within the last 3 to 5 years, okay? So I'm talking about the neuropsych testing or learning disability testing or whatever testing that you had that allowed you to get the accommodations in the public school that you already have. So check on that. And another one thing before you spend $3,500 or $5,000 on additional testing, you may want to talk with their psychologist or their psychiatrist if you've had a long working relationship with your child's physician and their condition is static, it hasn't changed, it's still the same. you might be able to use your outdated testing along with a letter from the physician highlighting the accommodations that are needed and that there's been multiple testing through the years and nothing has changed, and it is still the recommendation for these accommodations. I have actually seen that be approved, so you might want to try that before you spend all the money. For work, and I see that we have Anna Holderberg here, so she can put her contact information in the chat box. But work, reasonable accommodations is required if it doesn't pose an undue hardship. You can look at the Department of Labor job accommodation networks, but also in the state of Texas, we have Texas Workforce Solutions, we have Texas Workforce Commission. There's all kinds of programs that are designed to kind of close the gap on the impediment to employment for students with disabilities. And we do have presentations where we've partnered with Texas Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce Commissions to talk about their various programs. But basically, if your child is 14 and over and has a disability that could be an impediment to employment, they'll do all of the assessments and things like that. But it is something, vocational rehab is something that you definitely want to check out. And there are a tremendous number of resources in the state of Texas through those programs and highly qualified individuals that can help you navigate that. This is also something that in your school, if your child is in a public school, there is a person that is that is tied to the school for these programs, so you can kind of talk to your school about this, and they can also place you. You can reach out directly, and they can also get you in contact through your school, your liaison at school. So I want to talk about some educational options post-high school. So this is not an exhaustive list, and I would say also that we don't work for any of these institutions and they don't work for us. I guess that's my disclaimer. But what I will say is that whenever my daughter was entering this phase, I want to say, I admittedly, I think I was a mad woman trying to figure out what universities would be a good fit for her and with her accommodations, with her needs. There are a lot of programs out there. And as I mentioned, some are degree programs, some are certificate programs or training programs in specific industries. But there are a lot of programs out there. So as you are embarking on this, if you are thinking about higher education, the first thing that I would tell you, advice from one parent to another, is work it backwards. Okay, so if we know, like a lot of our kids on the autism spectrum, they have engineer brains, right? So if there are particular programs or engineering programs that you're interested in for your child that might be on the autism spectrum, I would narrow down the schools that have the programs that you're interested in. But then the very next step that I would do is I would research the Office of Disabilities at each of those schools. So as I was mentioning, all the rules are different for every school. Also, all of the offices of disability across the different schools they're not created equally. So when I started on this journey with my own daughter, I was on a mission to find out, here's the schools that we're interested in, who has the best and most robust Office of Disability, has the capability to deliver the tools and resources that she's going to need to be successful. Some schools are good, but some schools have a very horrible Office of Disability. And for us, that was just simply a school that got marked off the list that we couldn't consider. Some of these programs that you see on the list have a low number of people that they accept per term. So starting early and researching these programs and narrowing them down a little bit of what might be a good fit for you and your child, I think is a really good path, because if they're only taking 4, they're only taking 10 or something like that, that could mean a difference on whether or not you could get into a program. I think that there are some additional this isn't, again, exhaustive, but I think that there are some additional resources that you might find. Navigate Life Texas Veronica, you could put that in the chat box, the Navigate Life Texas website. It's a really good website for a variety of things for special needs, but there are some options out there that you can see as well. Do we have any questions yet?
No question.
Okay.
You already answered about the driving locations and names and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay,
perfect. So one place that I wanted to talk about is Bloom Consulting, and we have partnered with them and done webinars specifically. I'm just on Bloom Consulting, just flat out. But they have a variety of different programs. They have a variety of different things that they can work with. This is something that you can work directly individually and hire Bloom Consulting yourself. They do vocational evaluations to see what deficits your child might have and what kind of training they might need to close the gap on some of those deficits. But they have multiple programs. So if you don't take anything else from this slide, check out Bloom Consulting, check out their website and look at their other programs out there. But one of the programs that they have, which I think is an interesting program, it is designed to support neurodiverse college students with various disabilities as they attend post-secondary institution of their choice through either in-person or virtual support. So this is a wraparound planning process. They use the Berkman method assessment to build an individualized support team, which pairs the student with a connections coach who provides mentoring, guidance, and navigational support. This takes the role off of mom or dad, because I don't know about you, but most teenagers, well, my teenagers, they don't really want my advice. So when you have this outside person or outside agency that is working with your student, it's a little bit better, but it also empowers the students to problem solve their concerns more effectively and efficiently, as well as fostering informed choice, which is important. Now, the cost of this is $1,000 per month private pay, which sounds pretty expensive. But honestly, for the wraparound program that they're providing for your child, if this means a difference of them being able to go to school or not going to school, this is an affordable option. Another option that I don't have a slide for right now, there is something called the College Living Experience. And this is a place where they actually live there. They live separately, not in a dorm at the university, but I believe that it is in, I think it's close to A&M is where it is located. But the College Living Experience, they kind of live in a home, and they're being helped with all things as it relates to their college. They go outside to classes, whether it be through the community college that's local right there or through A&M. And then all the while, they're also learning how to live independently and getting some of those real life skills that they need to be functional adults in the future outside of your home. So again, this is somebody, this is, the College Living Experience, they're working with you. Now, some of the issues that as it relates to the College Living Experiences that you would be paying for outside tuition for whatever it is, whether it's the community college or whether it is the university, but the College Living Experience has their own tuition, and some would argue that it's pretty expensive, on the scale of an annual basis of what you're paying for school and housing and things like that. So you might want to check them out too. They have a really phenomenal program and they do a really great job.
We have questions about the CLE. It is around yes. Austin, or is just in College Station?
I believe that it is in College Station. I believe that it's in College Station, and I have to verify that, but I believe that it's in College Station, and they, again, there's a community college that's right there that they kind of feed into, and I believe it's A&M that they feed into. So if you have a child that's going to the community college, they can work with it. It's a good program. They have a good website. They've been doing a good job for many, many, many years. And, from a financial impact, if the expense is not, too much, I mean, it's a great option. And people that embark on it love it. So it's definitely worth looking at.
About it, Aubrey Jones is saying that for qualifying individuals, vocational rehabilitation can help cover those costs. If you are not yet in the VR, please complete the attached form and it's in our panel list. I will share that link with all the attendees too.
Yes, and I think that's an important thing. And I kind of, when it comes to vocational rehab, I don't work for them. You know, that is not what I do. I'm familiar with their services. I believe in their services. Both my kids are using their services and they do a really great job. But what I will tell you is that it is tailored to your specific child and what their needs are. So I hear in some of these webinars that we do, that we'll pay for this and we'll pay for that and we'll pay for this and we'll pay for that and they'll do this testing and you don't have to worry about it. And it's not a slam dunk. Okay, so they don't just it's not a blanket that we're going to pay for everything. There has to be a need. So there has to be a need that specific testing is necessary to determine what impediments to employment that the child might have. I just can't stress enough that every situation is different. So while I have had clients where, you know, so many things were paid for, or maybe they paid for something like CLE or something like that, other people, it didn't work out that way because their child didn't have those specific needs. So it is just really important to do the form, to work with an individualized consultant, and they really work with you, and they customize a plan specific and to your child and what their needs are. But it is definitely true that there are a number of things and assessments that would normally cost you a lot of money, thousands of dollars, that may be covered by vocational rehab. So it is in your best interest to check that out and work with your consultant and work on an individualized plan for your child. Do we have another question?
Yes, we have another question. Are there any programs for children that are severely cognitively impaired? So all post-high school education is already ruled out? We have that in Q&A.
So when we're going back, let me see if I can get this slide to go back. I don't know if I can. But going back to that list that we had on their screen, every program. So there are programs for kids that, you know, with severe disabilities, but you're going to have to spend time researching these programs because all the programs are vastly different. So one thing on our YouTube channel, we did do a panel. You can scroll on our YouTube channel and find a panel where we had, I don't know, several different schools and different programs talking about, you know, like the VAST program or the PATH program or different programs that are out there. So basically what happened is representatives from each of these schools came on and said who they are, what they do, where they're located, how long their program is, and who they serve. So that might be a good webinar for you to look at and kind of make a list of the ones that you might want to go deeper with. It is time consuming. I mean, I felt that when we were doing this, so my daughter's going to be a senior in college this year. But when we were doing this, I'm telling you, I felt like a madwoman, like, you know, because there's no like perfect place to gather all of this information. I mean, there are some websites, and like thinkcollege.com is another, it might be .org, but Think College is another one that is good and looking at some programs for kids with disability. But I mean, I had a spreadsheet. I know it sounds ridiculous, but anyway, I mean, I had a spreadsheet, and I was like, you know, of the list of the programs that I wanted to look at, and then I was ruling them off, you know, ruling them out, and, you know, by way of, again, as backwards as it may seem, by, okay, well, this school has a horrible Office of Disability. Delete, like just move on. Or this one doesn't have the programs that we're interested in, or what have you. So, I mean, and you don't have to, it doesn't have to be as exhaustive as my search was. I mean, we were considering schools all across the state of Texas, not just in our area. We were actually considering some schools that were out of state. So it kind of made the path a little bit a little bit longer. But if you know that you're not interested in your child being, any further than a half an hour from you or something like that, then that narrows it down to your little region, right there. So you can kind of start that way. And the thing is you can always grow from there. So maybe you do start at the community college or, at the university with 1 or 2 classes that is near your home and your child lives at home. But then maybe they grow into something more, or they want to transfer, things like that. And I think all of those things are okay. Veronica, any additional questions?
No, we are good. I already posted the teencollege.net link.
Okay, yes, that is a good website. So I think the biggest takeaway that I would say, and you're here today, is just start early. Start early. It's not easy. There's a lot of research that goes into this. And what I hear a lot of parents say is, well, the school has a college specialist. My child's going to meet with them. Your school may have that, but that specialist is working with the whole student body. They're not the specialist for your child, where they're going to go deep and wide and do the type of research that is necessary specifically for your child. A phone call to them might be helpful because you may learn of some other programs that might be relevant to your child that you weren't aware of, that you can do some additional research. But thinking that the guidance counselor that's in charge of counseling of college is going to handle all of these things is not a good thing to think. I think you just have to know that whether your special needs loved one is neurodiverse or not, this is not a job for any 18-year-old. So if we have an 18-year-old that's neurotypical, it's a lot to take in. Kind of dissecting all of this information. So just get involved, start early, and talk to other parents that have gone before you and have done this. A lot of times you can get some really good advice of what not to do and what to do because of good things that other parents did or mistakes that they made along the way that they had to correct. So don't, you are in circles. As parents, we're in circles of people that have children that might be similar to ours, or at least we share in something that their child or children may have a disability, and so that shared knowledge can really be valuable as well. So as it relates to getting started with special needs planning, we want you to work with a special needs planner to help you formulate a plan. Okay, so what does that even mean? So there's a special needs planner, there's a special needs attorney. We're different. We work together, but we're different. As a special needs planner, we are financial planners that are nuanced and special needs, which is important because you have a specialized situation as it relates to your loved one. And when it comes to finances and planning, it really, really matters that your advisor is nuanced in all things special needs, because an advisor that is not may cause you to make mistakes in your planning that could cause your child to lose benefits or not be eligible for benefits that they would have been had the mistake not been made. So a special needs attorney, so a special needs planner, we're the money, okay? The money, we have to have funding. We have to have funding for retirement, 25 to 35 years in retirement. But what if we have a special needs loved one that's going to need care for 25 to 35 years after our death? Okay, well, we have to form a plan. We have to figure out how much money is required for that. What does future care look like? How do we have a plan and work our plan? How do we retire, not run out of money, and have enough money to fund that future care? So that's where we come into play. And again, we're nuanced in special needs planning and special needs, so that way you don't lose benefits or you don't disqualify yourself from things that you could have accidentally made a mistake from. A special needs attorney, they're the paper, they're the legal documents. There's a number of legal documents that are necessary. Sometimes they're necessary, sometimes they're not, such as guardianship, partial guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, wills, and also in the state of Texas, sometimes the supported decision-making agreement. So that is an attorney that helps you with that. So, and how do you need both? So the attorney doesn't do the finance side of things, and the finance person doesn't do the legal documents that the attorney needs. And what I would say to you is, if you have kind of done this, before, what I would say is look at your situation as a specialized situation. Just as if you had a heart condition, you wouldn't go to the primary care physician. You certainly wouldn't go to a podiatrist to find out what's wrong with your heart. So when it comes to special needs planning and the legal documents that you need, as it relates to some of these things, you want to seek specialized attention to these matters. So as you're starting down this journey, you want to gather all the necessary planning documents, any legal documents that you already have in place. This could be wills, trust, healthcare power of attorney, guardianship, all of the things I already mentioned. You're also going to want to gather all of your planning things that you've done so far. Anything as it relates to savings, investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks, 403bs, any life insurance that you have through your employers or outside of your employers, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, any types of protection, risk management, or savings or asset gathering that you have worked on through the years. Those are the basic planning documents that you need to pull together. Some people have done an extensive amount of planning and they have a lot of stuff in place and they need help organizing it. They might need help, kind of just a checkup of, I need you to look at what I've done and see if I've made any mistakes that I need to correct or fix. And some people are just getting started. And wherever you are in the planning phase, there's no judgment here. So you're here today, and I'm glad that you're here. So it's not, I hear a lot of parents say, well, I would be embarrassed for you to see what I have done or what I haven't done so far. And so what I would say to you, it's okay, you're here today. It's not about looking back, it's about looking forward. So don't beat yourself up about that. Just get started, okay? Make a plan and say, I'm going to get started, or I'm going to get this done by, or something like that. So you're not alone if you're in that boat. And a lot of times people have done planning. They've done planning, but maybe they haven't looked at it in the last 10 or 15 years. Maybe they have things that are very outdated or that need to be updated or things like that. And those are all things that are very normal. So if you fall into that category, you're not alone. You're certainly not alone there. Consider developing a letter of intent. We do have this on our YouTube channel, and this is basically a family love letter to your loved ones, talking to them. It's basically you're writing everything out that you know about your child. You know everything about them. You know it backwards and forwards. But if you became incapacitated or dead, what happens? Does the person that would step into your shoes know exactly what to do, what happens on a day-to-day basis, all the diagnosis, all the names, address, and phone numbers of doctors, all of the medications, what makes your child tick, what makes them melt down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have a template for a letter of intent. A letter of intent is something that is important to do. And that's just, again, something to make a note of to get started. It should be on your radar. It should be something, using our template or using a Word document that you create. I do recommend that it's done on a word processor so you can revisit that and kind of check it, update it, every year or two. I usually recommend updating it twice a year, and unless your child has very complex medical needs that are ever changing, then I would update it more frequently. But formulate your vision on how you hope things will look for your special needs child, but more importantly, as importantly, is how you hope your vision, what is your vision for you and your spouse, or you and your future and your retirement, and what does that look like? Do you want to travel? Do you need respite care? Do you want to be a caregiver forever with no help? And I think it's important to have some balance there, because what we see is that the caregivers that don't ever have any respite or don't ever have any balance as it relates to their own retirement or things like that, we see that health starts to decline in the caregiver. So it is important to look at this. And what I would say is, as parents, we always put our kids above everybody else. and we are always putting our own needs on the back burner. So when you're looking at this plan, it really needs to have some balance for both you and your loved one. It's super, super important. Okay, so who will care for my child when I'm gone? We can help you develop a future care plan now that will answer these questions and determine how much is needed to pay for it, and show you how to fund these types of things. We also recommend touring care facilities such as Brookwood, Marbridge Foundation, Daymark Living. Again, on our YouTube channel, we have a whole webinar on outside living arrangements, different programs that are available. A lot more. I think Brookwood, Marbridge, and Daymark were all on there, but I think that there was like 7 or 8 other places that were on there. And basically I think it was an hour-and-a-half presentation, so it was a little on the long side, but each one of the facilities came on and said who we are, what we do, who we serve, how much it costs. And so that may be, in an hour-and-a-half, that might be a way to see, what is in and around the state of Texas. It was all across the board of where the facilities were located, not just in the greater Houston area. But you want to start touring these facilities and looking at this, because if this is part of your plan, some of the waiting lists for these facilities could be 5 years or longer. So you might want to get yourself on the list. Just because you come up on the list doesn't mean you have to take the slot. But if you decide you want to go there and then you find out that there's a 5-year waiting list, that might not be in the timeline that you had in mind. So don't get caught in that situation. Also, we want you to make careful considerations before naming siblings as a future caregiver. We like to see the siblings named as maybe a successor trustee of the special needs trust, that they can help govern care. But we just, even though family's family and we all love each other, your other children that are similar ages or slightly older than your child with disabilities, they have their own hopes and dreams, just like you did when you were in your 20s and 30s. Maybe they want to go to college. Maybe they want to have a big career. Maybe they want to get married, buy a house, have children of their own, and things like that. And so if we have a young person that is the caregiver, the sole caregiver for an individual with disabilities, it really impedes their ability. They say yes, and it's an obligatory yes. And I'm not suggesting that they don't love the family, but they say yes in an obligatory fashion. And there can be a wedge between your child with disabilities and the other neurotypical child. Whereas if they're a successor trustee of the trust, then they have the ability to navigate and find care for your loved one that is going to be great, but have the ability to still be a loving sibling and have a good relationship with your other child. Okay, so we talk about this, and if you've attended our webinars before, you've probably seen this slide before, because this is something we talk about all the time, is how will my child's care be funded? So one of the things, so it's true that your child's care will be funded by other assets that you have, and a lot of times life insurance proceeds payable to a special needs trust fund future care for your loved one. Most people will spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. So the money that they saved in the 25 to 35 years that they were working, they sometimes need in retirement. So there are other places that a person can have money and other sources for funding. One thing that we want you to be mindful of is preserving the eligibility for state and federally funded programs. I'm specifically talking about SSI and Medicaid. We have entire presentations, multiple presentations on Social Security disability, working while getting SSI and Medicaid, Social Security disability. We have entire presentations on that, multiple ones on our YouTube channel, so you can check those out. But basically for SSI and Medicaid, if your child is not getting that, or maybe they were denied previously, it's a means-based program. So if you are married and your child is under age 18, if you have more assets than $3,000 to your name, more than one house, more than one car, then you're basically denied for SSI and Medicaid. But when your child turns 18, it's based off of their assets, not yours, even if they're still living in their home. So if you're in your home, so if you're taking notes, what you want to do is you want to call and schedule an appointment with your local Social Security office for the month that your child turns 18 to apply for benefits for them. So again, you want to make sure that there's not more than $2,000 in their name. You want to schedule this appointment probably 3 or 4 months in advance for their birthday month. So you can't do it prior to their birthday, 18th birthday month, but you can schedule it for that month. And if you wait till their 18th birthday month to call, it is possible that you will not get a phone appointment for 2 to 3 months. Okay, so that's why you want to do that ahead of time. Also, the Social Security offices are closed to the general public right now unless there's a dire emergency. So they are doing phone appointments. You can do an online application. I do recommend the phone appointment over the online application. Social Security, disability, and Medicare. Social Security, disability, also called SSDI. So this is a work-based program. So people earn credits as a parent. If you're working, you earn credits for Social Security retirement and Social Security disability. Most of our children don't earn credits, or they haven't earned credits yet. Okay, so basically, when you apply for SSI and Medicaid, you're going to get a letter that they are denied for Social Security disability because they don't qualify. And I've actually had parents call me crying because they're so mad because their child is so severely disabled, they can't even fathom how the Social Security Administration could suggest that they're not disabled. And which is fair, okay? But the point is they don't qualify, not because they're not saying that they're disabled. They simply don't qualify because they haven't paid into the system. Where this changes is that as a parent, if you establish with the Social Security Administration that your child's disability started prior to age 22, they will be considered a disabled adult child under your work record, not theirs, yours or dad's or whoever's, right? Once mom or dad retires through the Social Security Administration or goes on disability through the Social Security Administration and dies, there's other things, then your disabled adult child will be eligible for 50% of your Social Security benefits. So for example, in this example, if let's say you're 67 years old and you have turned on your Social Security and you're getting $3,000 a month. If you have a disabled adult child on your record, your disabled adult child, once you turn on your benefits, will be eligible for $1,500, 50% of what your benefit is not reduced. And then after 2 years, they're going to be eligible for Medicare. And in most cases, they'll be dual eligible at this point for SSI, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and Medicare is basically how that works. So we want to preserve that. Also, once that happens and your child is getting RSDI under this parent record because you're either retired or disabled, upon your death, your child's benefit will be increased from 50% to 75% of your benefit. One thing that I want to note here is that this is based off of the age that you take it. So if you take it early, your benefit and your child's benefit will be permanently reduced. It is based on a maximum of up to your full retirement age. For most people, it's 67. We may have a few people on here that's 66 and whatever months, but most people's full retirement age is age 67. As a worker, if you delay taking Social Security post your full retirement age, in this example of age 67, your benefit is going to increase 8% a year up until age 70. So some people delay taking Social Security to age 70 so they can have that increased benefit. It is important to note that although your benefit will be increased, your disabled adult child's benefit will be based off of the full retirement age, and your disabled adult child benefit will not start until you turn on benefits. So what I will say for this is we have an amazing software specifically for Social Security analysis and when you should take it. And it's specifically for families with disabled adult children on their record because there's a lot of moving parts. So if you are a family that has one income provider, a one income household, and so there's spousal benefits that we have to consider, plus we have a disabled adult child, or if you're a family that has multiple disabled adult children, basically this analysis is something that we can provide that tells you exactly when and how you should take your Social Security, and it will monetize each of the different options and show you the differences and what it will cost you or what you will gain by taking it at different ages. So that may be something that you want to consider. So again, the current life insurance and assets provide funding for a special needs trust. A special needs trust and an ABLE account are the only two accounts that you can have money in above the $2,000, the limit for a single person, or $3,000 for a married couple for SSI, without disqualifying. So basically what I'm saying to you is if you have more than $2,000 in your child's name, they're not going to qualify for SSI. If they are working at the time that you apply for SSI, your application is automatically going to be denied. So if your child is working and applies for SSI, their application is automatically going to be denied. An ABLE account is yet another place that a person can have money that will not disqualify a person for having more assets than allowed. So a special needs trust, basically you can have an unlimited amount of money in a special needs trust. An ABLE account, you can put $15,000 a year up to a total of $100,000 total account value, and not disqualify for SSI. And we can help you set those up. So on an ABLE account, basically yes?
Yes, we have just one question. Is the SSDI only available if you have a guardianship of the adult child?
No, it really doesn't have to do. It really doesn't have to do with guardianship. It has to do with if the disabled adult. Well, if they're considered a disabled adult child, and in order to be considered a disabled adult child through the Social Security Administration, you have to prove to the administration that the disability occurred prior to age 22. So if your child is older than 22 and you didn't know this and you haven't applied, it's not the end of the world, okay? You just have to prove that the disability started prior to age 22. But if the disability started after age 22, then they will not be able to be considered a disabled adult child on your record. So again, we're nationally certified in Social Security. We're certificate holders for that, and we can help with all of the Social Security stuff. In an effort for time, I'm going to just kind of talk about the ABLE account very quickly. We do have presentations on the ABLE account. The beneficiary is the account owner. The disability had to start prior to age 26, not 22, on an ABLE account. The income earned is not taxable, but it does not jeopardize SSI and Medicaid and other public benefits. But there are special contribution limits of $15,000 a year, and the distribution limits basically is kind of broad, but as far as distributions, you can take a distribution out of an ABLE account if it's construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. So when do I need a special needs trust and guardianship? Basically, a special needs trust will preserve benefit eligibility while providing resources for your special needs child. So basically, if there are assets over $2,000, you should have a special needs trust. Furthermore, if you have child support that you're getting that will continue post age 18, which happens a lot in the state of Texas, that child support will be counted as income if you don't get it redirected to a first-party special needs trust. Again, go to our YouTube channel, check out our presentations on that, because we go deep and wide on all of that. Guardianship can be applied for 6 months prior to the child turning 18 years old, and you're going to want to have a qualified attorney to prepare these documents. It is really necessary to do that. So what I would say to this, I hear people all the time say, "Can I do this myself? Can I handle this myself? How can I save money?" and things like that. Again, what I want to say to you is you have a specialized situation. There are some things that you shouldn't just do yourself. And I am just telling you, when it comes to special needs and special needs planning and financing and legal documents and all of these things, do not do it yourself. You need an attorney. We partner with a lot of attorneys. We have their price sheets. We're happy to make referrals to qualified attorneys. Most of the attorneys that we work with have an adult special needs child themselves. They've been there, done that. They eat, sleep, and breathe this. So we're happy to make those recommendations. So these are some things that should be on your radar. We've kind of talked about a lot of these things. And again, we have these all on our YouTube channel. the various presentations. And you guys will be on our email. So as we're having additional presentations in the future, you'll get an email and invite to where you can join whichever topics might be most relevant to you in your unique situation. So as it relates to Consolidated Planning Group, we want to work with you. We want to help you. We know that everybody on here has a unique situation and unique challenges in front of them, but we can certainly help you customize a plan, kind of have a plan and work your plan for the future. We can also help you in kind of narrow down and doing the Social Security analysis and those other types of things. We always have a free consultation. So if you're interested in chatting with us further about your situation, certainly reach out to us, and we'll be happy to schedule you. And you can find our YouTube channel here, which we reference multiple times on all of the different webinars that are out there. Well, I have 1 o'clock right now, Veronica. Do we have time for just one more question?
We have just one question that is in the chat. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little bit long, but I don't know if you can wrap it up with that one. And thank you so much, everybody, to being here. Do you see it, Allison? Yes,
I see it. So if a disabled adult child is already on SSI but starts limited basic work and accrues 6 credits on his own, can the DAC get SSDI and Medicare 24 months later? So if they have work credits and yes, as they're building work credits, it is possible for them to switch over to SSDI, and it is possible for them to build up their own work credits where it's not necessary for them or for them to be under use. So it is totally possible, but there is something called the Social Security. I'm going to tell you 2 things that are super important. Write this down. There is something called the Social Security Blue Book. So if you're thinking about applying for SSI, the Blue Book is an impairment guide, which basically you can look up the impairments that your child has, and it is going to tell you what you are going to have to prove, or your doctors are going to have to prove for your child to be considered disabled based off of their diagnoses or whatever, like whatever their diagnoses are. There are some presumptive conditions, like for instance, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, things like that is a presumptive disability there's a lot of them, but you can Google that. Then also there is something called the Social Security Red Book. So I just said the Blue Book, and that's the impairment guide. And the Social Security Red Book is a book that you can download and you can read, and you should read about working and SSI and the various programs. There's a lot of different programs out there, like Ticket to Work. There's a 9-month trial work period. So, I mean, they want a person to try their hand at work and don't want to penalize them right off the bat. Like if you work, you're automatically going to, you're done. So it doesn't work like that, but there is a lot of information, and you definitely do need to check those 2 books out, the Blue Book and the Red Book. So thanks so much. I've got 1:03, and I'm sorry for going over. It's been my pleasure to be here today. Thank you again, Veronica, for having us back. And again, thank you all for taking the time to be here today. And we're certainly happy to help you any way that we can.
Thank you so much, guys. See you in the next one.
Bye now.
Stop recording, Allison.